playground!
Hooray!
Hey, it's Jeff Zito, and welcome to another edition of Celebrity Jobber. I'm pretty excited about today's guest because I don't talk to too many actresses. You know, I don't think I've spoken to an actress yet. And this one is, she's a good one because not only is she easy on the eyes, one would say, but also in a lot of really, really great movies. Cocktail being one of them. I do remember a movie that she was in that was shot in Sarasota, Florida back in the maybe mid to late 90s with Woody Harrelson and Elizabeth Shue, and that was called Palmetto, and there were, you know, my parents lived there and I kind of grew up there, so I remember a lot of the little places in downtown areas that they shot that movie, and I have some friends that were like extras in that movie, so I thought that was pretty cool. But Gina Gershon, a real actress. And my wife reminded me as I walked out the door this morning that Gina Gershon was in Showgirls. Remember that movie? I know, I almost forgot about it. And the girl from Saved by the Bell, almost forgot about her too. So what would Gina Gershon be doing if not an actress? What was her first job or her big break? We're going to ask her. Gina Gershon is our guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
I'm doing pretty good. I was reminded by my wife last night that you were in Showgirls, and I said, oh, yeah, Showgirls. I remember watching Showgirls. I haven't seen it in a little bit, but I can't remember whether or not you were nude in Showgirls, because everybody was, weren't they?
Not everybody.
Not everybody? What? So you were not?
It was 25 years ago. I was the star Showgirls. I had a lot of body makeup on.
Right.
But we're not here to talk about Showgirls. We're here to talk about my directorial debut.
Oh, I got that. Don't you worry about that. I've got 12 desperate hours already locked and loaded and ready to go. I just merely wanted to see if that's a difficult part of acting, like if you have those kind of scenes that you have to do.
What kind of scenes?
Well, if you have any type of nude scenes or love scenes, is that a very difficult part of acting? It seems like it would be very difficult.
Depends how hard the dance moves are.
Right.
And how much you like working with your partner. I mean, it's a part of acting. If you're playing a showgirl, you're going to be dancing around with a lot of feathers and crystals. If I'm playing a murderer, I'm probably going to be running around with an axe. I mean, that's hard because they're heavy. And, if I'm doing a love scene, it depends on what the character is going through. It's like saying, no, I'm painting a thing. Here's black and here's yellow and here's purple. What's more difficult to paint with?
In the beginning, let's say like in the beginning when you first became a professional actress, were those difficult hurdles to get over? I mean, obviously you got used to it over time, but I would just imagine me not being an actor, being a ham and egger at best in life, that would be something that I would struggle with.
Well, then it's a good thing you're not an actor.
I guess you're right. I guess you're damn well right. Hey, I know you were on Curb Your Enthusiasm, but were you ever on Seinfeld?
No. I think I was just still in college maybe when that was going on, or just getting out. I wish I had been. No.
The reason that I'm asking is because I was just digging up a little info on your background, and I found out that your father was an importer-exporter, just like George Costanza's alter ego, Art Vandelay. So I had no idea what an importer-exporter did. So I was just wondering, what is it?
Well, they import, whatever it is, furniture or radios or whatever it is, they're importing it from a different country, and then they export it to other places in America or somewhere else.
So what did your dad import and export? Was it everything, a lot of different things, or one specific thing?
Different things.
Okay.
Radios to some furniture. He was like a real traveling salesman.
Okay. I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought maybe you were on Seinfeld and gave them that idea, because I have seen you on Curb before.
That all by himself. He's a clever fellow.
He figured that out all on his own.
Yeah.
So
a lot of exporters.
You grew. I'm not in the importer-exporter world, just like you've found out I'm not in the acting world. But yeah, I was definitely interested. I'm a big fan of Seinfeld, too. I hear you grew up in Beverly Hills, or you grew up in Los Angeles, but attended Beverly Hills High School. Did you go to school with any other famous people?
Lots of them.
Really?
I grew up in the Valley. I don't know where you're reading all this stuff. But, I grew up there, that I went to school there for a few years.
It's the internet, Gina. It's always right.
That's not true. I call imdblie.com. And the answers are there, 5 of them will be wrong. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, I know. Sometimes.
Answers of everything you read or everything you hear, you just got to talk to the person themselves.
Well, this is good.
Decide for themselves, and then they could be lying to you.
Don't lie to me. I'm a very. You know what? If we met in person, you would say he's very charming. I think you'd like me.
Charming.
Well, I think we got off to a rocky start, but I think I've recovered pretty well, to tell you the truth.
You've done an excellent job. I'm just, I think my brain is like in the mode of like, let's talk about and sell this Lifetime movie, and I really am happy and excited to be a part of it. So I guess there's a part of me that's just like, let's not talk about this. I don't want to talk about a movie from 25 years ago.
Oh no, that's cool. Well, look, let's talk a little bit about the Lifetime movie. It's called 12 Desperate Hours, and you're the director. Are you also acting in the movie?
I am not.
Okay, is that difficult? Let's go back to that question. Is that difficult, being a director and an actor in the same movie? I would imagine that's not easy. I've
only done it. I've done it really twice before. I did a short film during the pandemic called, an anthology of shorts called Within, and I just had me and my cat, because you had to shoot whoever was in your house at the time, and at that moment I was isolated. So, yeah, that was difficult because I had to do everything. The acting was the least of it because I kind of improvised and I did the sound later on. I think in this case for this 12 Desperate Hours, I think 12 Desperate Hours referred to me trying to make a day because it was a very, very, very low budget. You couldn't go overtime, which meant you only had 12 hours in the day. And it ended up being a 13-day shoot, which for something, an hour and a half of film, be, hopefully 18 days. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't think I would have had time. If there was more time and you could watch playback, then I think you could act easier in it. But we did not have that luxury. So there was no way I was going to be in this. And, when you're directing, it's like you're looking at everything. I'm looking at the production design and the costumes and the directing the actors and making sure everything's going smoothly because we didn't, it was a kind of a tricky crew. So it felt a little bit like being back at NYU or doing guerrilla filmmaking. So I really enjoyed not having to go into hair and makeup as well. That's safe.
Well, I'm glad you kind of explained the director side to me because I was, wondering about that. Is it just telling the actors, do this, do that, do it this way, do it that way? But no, it's more of everything. You're in charge of costumes and production and lighting and all that kind of shit.
You're in charge of everything. And more importantly, like, how are we going to shoot this scene? To make the day. I wanted to shoot it a certain way, but we didn't have the right cameras, and they couldn't afford to get the right cameras. So I had to very quickly figure out how am I going to tell this story in as little time. There was a couple scenes at the end in a normal, quote-unquote, movie with a regular production. You'd have 2 days to shoot that scene.
Right.
I had like 3 hours to shoot that scene. So you have to really be like thinking on your feet, thinking ahead of how you're going to edit it, because a lot of this direction was done in the editing room. All of a sudden my lead broke his foot, so I couldn't have him running around, and I couldn't have him kicking out glass, which was there. So then all of a sudden you have to think on your feet and go, shit, I got to shoot this a different way.
Right.
To tell the tension without having him move at all, you know?
Right.
So it was very intense, which I loved. I liked thinking about everything. I really loved what this story meant. So it was fun to direct it, but I also believed in it. You know, I feel like we all are connected and we affect each other for better or worse. And, you know, here's a story that I found that was sent to me that kind of presents the problem and the solution that we're having today in America, which is of gun violence and mental illness. And I just thought this is a very interesting story based on a true story about a woman who's very compassionate and empathetic and a good mother. And then all of a sudden she's confronted with this guy who's a little unhinged with a rifle, sawed-off shotgun in her face, who's trying to get to his girlfriend because that's the only love he's ever known. And it's a guy who's a victim of society, who's been kicked around and, you know, treated like a dog. And, you know, through her kindness and compassion, she decides to drive him around to protect her family, but she prevents him from killing other people and from killing himself. And I feel like, you know...
That's heavy. Did you always want to go into this field? I read, maybe this is wrong too. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you wanted to be the CEO of a company. But I read that you always wanted to be, you know, in acting. But you started out as like, you know, a song and dance type of actress.
I mean, it was all the same to me. It was all performing. I knew I loved to sing. I loved to dance. I acted, even though I was realizing I was doing it or not. And then I started doing plays. I was always a song and dance girl, but when I was starting out as an actor, at a certain point you had to decide. You couldn't be singing and dancing and acting. It felt much more isolated. Now it's great to do everything. And, you know, but then once I started doing musicals and professional shows, it was a great way to mix it all up together. When I did Pray for Rock and Roll, this movie that I really love, in fact, the director of that, Alex, came on as my editor for this because I really liked him. I got to play rock and roll and sing and play guitar and act at the same time, which I really love mixing that all up. I like doing everything. You know, I really like doing a lot of things. I started painting. I really love that, too.
What was your first job? Like, so you went to NYU, you're talking about doing guerrilla filmmaking at NYU, and then you get out of NYU. Did you have like a first gig out of college that wasn't acting? Like or not even out of college? What was your very first job?
Well, I mean, it depends. The first job getting paid or not getting. My first job as an actress that I got paid. Well, actually, no, it was before that. I was the dancing legs in Beatlemania.
Oh, okay.
I was in high school, and my friends' parents were producing it. They knew I was a dancer, so I got paid to be one of the dancers. But you never see my face; you see legs, which was really fun. I was like, "Oh, I get paid to dance." That's fun. And then my good friend Tina Landau, she directed a musical when we were in high school that went to the Cornet Theater. So that was the first time I got paid professionally as an actor. But my job, God, I was working since I was 15. I worked at a place called Chicken Shirt where you put decals on T-shirts.
Oh, wow.
I've had a lot of crazy jobs. My first job, actually, you know what? My first paying gig, to be honest, I was like, my sister decided to become like a spiritualist, you know, when we were very little, and she would charge, you know, 25 cents, and she put glow in the dark paint on my body. I think I was like 4, and I would hang out activated under the lights, and then in the closet I would jump out. She's like, "Spirits, come out and dance," and I'd come out and dance. And I think she gave me a nickel. Later on, I realized, oh wait, I think I should have gotten. Wait, I don't know how that worked, but that was my first paying gig in showbiz.
That was a real paying gig. You were 4 years old, and wow, that I like the decal thing though too. That's like you were like a regular. Just, you know, you like to see people before they, you know, hit big and see what they were about. And see, you know, what they did, you know, in this world, in this life. What was
I grew up in the Valley, you know, and my dad said, you know, I started working when I was 15. If I wanted, you know, a stereo, he's like, great, you pay for half of it, and I'll pay for the other half. So they got me working early.
Did you have a good growing up? Was your childhood, your parents, everything about growing up? You had a good family?
I do. I have a really nice family. I mean, listen, there's always issues in every family.
Sure.
You find out what your, you know, traumas or what your issues were as you get older, and you think, oh, maybe this and that. You know, there's I took a class once that really taught me about compassion, and which I think helped me so much with acting. It was the best class I took with Sandra Seacat, who my wonderful teacher who passed recently. And you learn everyone has something. Sometimes it's more obvious. I was lucky. I had a very wonderful family, and I grew up, but there's always deep-seated, strange things that you pick up from the lineage of your family.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
Humans to figure that stuff out and to better ourselves. And I've been lucky because in a lot of, with acting, you get to explore a lot of things and exercise, certain demons or issues or to grow as a human being.
A little therapeutic then.
Sure. I mean, if you're doing it right, hopefully you're touching on issues or moments that other people can recognize, and hopefully they go, it sheds some light on it.
What do you consider your big break was, Gina? Like, maybe you were Legs in Beatlemania, and that was great, but was there a particular role that you got you a lot of attention and you were able to make, Cocktail and do all those movies, Showgirls, Palmetto? That was a favorite of mine. My parents live in Sarasota, so I remember when you guys shot Palmetto.
Oh, yeah, I like that one. I think Walter Hill really gave me my first real break as an actress. I went in for a small part, and then he said, I think you should be the lead. And that was Red Heat with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jim Belushi. And Walter Hill really taught me a lot about writing and directing and acting. And I did that in conjunction with doing Cocktail at the same time. So I think that was my first break in film. And at theater, when I got out of college, I auditioned for a part I probably wouldn't be able to play now as an Afghani girl about the Soviet invasion in Afghanistan. That was at a theater then called Los Angeles Theater Center. So I got cast as the lead female in that with a wonderful group. I got paid to do theater. I was like, wow, that's great. And Faces on the Wall at the Cornet, I got paid to do theater there. So those are breaks.
Do you ever think about, like, if it wasn't for all this acting, you're lucky. I mean, this is a great occupation, a great career. You do very well. You're very successful. But do you ever think, like, if it wasn't for that big break, maybe what you might be doing today? I know you wouldn't be sticking decals on anything, but do you ever think about that?
Oh, my God. I always thought that if I didn't, quote unquote, make it as an actor, I mean, listen, if you really want to act and you have that disease, really, like, you stick to it. I would have been doing theater. I would have been, I was working I was part of a theater company called Naked Angels, and we did play after play after play with wonderful people. And, you don't get paid a thing, but you do it because you kind of have to do it. It's in your system. But I always thought if I had never, quote unquote, made it, if I thought my other job, I wanted to be a dream psychologist for children, especially. I thought that was very interesting. And, luckily with acting, I found Sandra, she taught me how to incorporate dream work with your character and in a very Jungian sort of way. And so I kind of got to mix it all up together,
Wow.
I would have probably been singing in a band. I love doing that. You just have to follow where your passion is.
You never know where the road takes you, I had a dream last night that my boss ripped me, MF'd me up and down and fired me. What does that mean?
Well, how did you feel about it?
I woke up. I was uncomfortable. I actually confronted the boss this morning and I said, hey, man, we cool? I had this dream last night. And then I have somebody that's interested in dreams here at the station I work at. And she goes, let me look it up. And she goes, lots of anxiety at work and possibly romantic issues. I go, well, I don't think it's romantic issues, but.
Well, listen, this is the truth about dreams. There's no one answer. And when you look at those books, an eyeball means this. An eyeball can mean something so different to so many people. Sometimes a cigar is a cigar. If I dream about a cigar, it's like that's connected to my father because I remember always smelling that, that cigar smell. Your boss is representing something else, depending. He could be your shadow side. He could be the authority. You have to figure out who he is and what he represents, because it's probably not exactly your boss. It could be, but if there's someone that you're feeling, anxiety with, or it could be a situation in your life that you're feeling oppressed and that it's screwing you up, then you dig down. There's a great thing called active imaginations that you could, all your dreams are all symbols, right?
Right.
So if there's a stapler that you forgot and you had to take that, what does that stapler mean? And you could just be quiet and ask yourself, who are you? What are you? They're energies and they're symbols that want to talk to you. You know what I mean? And you could figure out what they are, and then you could little by little figure out what is going on in your life and hopefully what to do about it.
Man, this is good stuff, Gina. I got to tell you, I thought this started out like it was going to be a disaster, like Thelma and Louise driving off a cliff. And then, my fault. Maybe I shouldn't ask you about showgirls and getting naked as the first question. You probably thought I was some kind of creep. But boy, did we recover nicely. What a great chat I think we had.
Had to steer you in the right direction. You were going off the rails there.
Well, you brought me back. You saved me.
I brought you back. From the dark side.
12 Desperate Hours on Lifetime. Director Gina Gershon. Thanks for talking. Thanks for not hanging up there in the first 30 seconds. And I had a good time talking to you.
I had a nice time talking to you, too.
All right, Gina, take care. Thanks again.
You too. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
You see how she said that? I had a nice time talking to you, too. If I didn't know any better, I think she was trying to make nice with me. Yeah, that was one of those interviews that right from the beginning seemed like it was not going the way I wanted it to go. Well, a little bit my fault for leading with, "Oh, were you naked and showgirls?" If you know me, that's not my style. I'm not like Howard Stern. I'm not trying to get I've got my own personality. I like to ask the tough questions, but not really trying to upset anybody or talk about their sexual history. And anyway, she doesn't know me, so maybe she thought I was one of those guys. Regardless, it was the first thing that I had in my mind as I walked out the door this morning. My wife was like, "Yeah, she was in Showgirls." I was like, "Ooh, yeah, Showgirls," Anyway, digging myself a hole once again. Gina Gershon, not from Beverly Hills, as she corrected me, from the Valley, but did go to Beverly Hills High School and did go to high school with a lot of famous people. Her father, like Art Vandelay from Seinfeld, George Costanza, an importer-exporter. I thought that was interesting. I don't know much about the importing and the exporting business. Matchbooks, radios, who knows? She kind of cleared that up for me a little bit. And I thought one of the most interesting parts about our conversation was, if not for being an actress, if not for being a movie star, director, she would have tried to go into the field of being a dream psychologist, analyzing children's dreams. You don't really hear that too often as far as an occupation. I thought that was very interesting and seemed to have, she thought a lot about that. Her first job, of course, she talked about being, with her sister and doing something kooky when she was 4 years old. But she was putting decals on T-shirts. That was really her first job when she was in her teens. And, came from a family who, her dad said, "Hey, you want this? You want something nice? You buy half of it and I'll buy the other half." That's pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. Gina Gershon, once again, glad she didn't hang up. That was a close one. But once again, folks, as you have heard, I am a professional. That'll do it for another great episode of Celebrity Jobber. I thought it was a great episode. I learned a lot about Gina Gershon, and she doesn't really like to talk about showgirls and getting naked, but regardless, maybe I came off a little strong. Please subscribe, download, rate, review. We're available wherever you pod. So until next week, and another edition of Celebrity Jobber. Thanks again for listening. I'm Jeff Zito.